Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Escape the Oracle ULA Trap webinar. Let's start. So, quick introduction to me. My name's Ben Dove. I'm a principal consultant with the Livingstone Group and Oracle SME. I've been in software asset management for over a decade, and I've been in technology for well over 20 plus years. I've worked for, I was a software asset manager at the likes of Sainsbury's, FedEx, and EY. I've specialized in Oracle for about the last 8 years or so. As I said, I work for the Livingstone Group. Livingstone are a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader in software asset management and cost optimization. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with who we are, but just putting that on there. And so let's get into our first question really is, so what is a ULA? So at its very basic level, a ULA is an agreement between a customer and Oracle whereby Oracle provides the customer with an unlimited right to deploy and use the products within their agreement during the period of the agreement. So a very base level software contract. But that doesn't really explain why a ULA exists or why a customer would actually buy one. And so to get to this, we have to understand why was it originally created? Why did Oracle first create this agreement type? Now, to understand this, we have to go back to the 1990s when software was absolutely exploding, particularly in California, and businesses were life or death getting their applications working. And so at that time, any delays to getting those applications up and running were costing businesses millions of dollars. And so what was happening is, as companies were rapidly deploying these new applications, they would run out of Oracle licenses, they'd run out of their database licenses. And then they'd have to engage their procurement teams and start a negotiation with Oracle to buy a new set of licenses, issue you the purchase order, get the entitlement in, and then start deploying their databases again. Now, this delay obviously causes a huge problem in getting their applications running. So Oracle said, well, listen, we can take that headache out of the way. You can buy from us a 3-year unlimited agreement where you can just deploy as many as you want. And at the end of the period, you can tell us what you're using and you can ride off into the sunset with all those licenses. And so that's the reason why the ULA was originally created. But that's not the reason why most customers buy one. The reason why most customers buy a ULA can be split into two reasons. So the first reason is because of an audit. So if a customer gets audited by Oracle LMS and they find that they have a significant amount of non-compliance on their environment, Oracle will give the customer one of 3 options. So the first option would be buying the licenses, and in many cases, this is tens of, even some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars. The second option is what we call a POF, or a pool of funds agreement. And the final option is the ULA. Now, most customers, when presented with those options, will take the ULA as it seems the most valuable option for them at that time. The other reason why a customer would buy a ULA is to protect them from the audit activity, from the non-compliance that they might have. And they use this ULA essentially as a shield to prevent Oracle's LMS teams from coming in and performing an audit or getting any unpleasant audit notification letters. So they're the 2 reasons why the most popular 2 reasons why customers will have bought a ULA. But not all ULAs are created equally. So we need to understand that a ULA by its very nature is a non-standard agreement. And this means that they can be customized, and Oracle can put customizations in, or the customer can request customizations. But while they are non-standard, most ULAs will contain the same 4 key features. And that's what we'll move on to on our next slide. So what we can see here are the key features of a ULA. And as I said, most ULAs will have these. You will find the odd one that doesn't, but most ULAs will have these. So on the top left in the green quadrant, what we can see there is the unlimited deployment right, the primary feature of the ULA, the right to deploy those programs at an unlimited level during the course of the agreement. And then in the blue quadrant on the top right, we can see the technical support caps. Now, Oracle support previously used to be 4% year on year. It was increased recently to 8% year on year. What Oracle say is, when you enter a ULA, we will keep your technical support level flat during the course of that ULA. So that means that your support doesn't go up 4 or 8% during that period, it remains flat. Then in the bottom left quadrant, we have the extended support waiver. Now, ironically, this doesn't have any value right now today because at this point in time, there are no Oracle products that currently exist within an extended support period. But previously, and certainly in the future, this will have value where certain versions of certain products go out of Premier support and into extended support. And this is where Oracle will charge a customer an additional fee to support those products. Well, if those products are in your EULA, Oracle will waive that fee. And the final option, the final section in the red quadrant here is the no audit clause. And this is obviously, for most customers, probably the most valuable part of their EULA. It essentially says that Oracle will not audit a customer's use of those programs while they're in the ULA. So let me move on to my next slide, which is, so what are the pitfalls of a EULA? And this is really, what are the challenges that customers experience either entering into or during the course of a EULA? Now, as you can see on the slide, we put these down to 4. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are the 4 common challenges that we certainly see a lot of customers suffer with in their EULAs. And the first section is product selection. And this can be split into, customers who struggle with this can be split into 2 categories. The customers that put too much product in their trolley, so they have too many products in their EULA, and the customers that don't put enough. So the challenge with putting too many products in their EULA, obviously they're paying way more than they should do for their EULA, but in Oracle's interest, when they sell a customer a EULA, they want to put as many products in there as possible. The more products, the more revenue from Oracle. But a lot of products don't make any sense in a EULA. And I'll give you an example of this. So if you've got e-business products, so things like payroll and HR, your number of employees, so those products have an employee metric. The number of employees that you have under that metric is not likely to increase significantly. So therefore, it doesn't make sense to have those products in EULA. But we do see many customers that do put those products into EULAs. Also, similarly, on your middleware products, again, while you will expand the usage of middleware, it is not likely to be a huge amount. You're not going to be deploying thousands and thousands of WebLogic servers. So again, it doesn't really make sense to have an unlimited deployment right for those products. The second part of that is obviously the customers that don't put enough products into their EULA. And we significantly see this with customers that have had to buy a EULA as part of as a resolution, as a settlement to an audit activity. And this is where customers are trying to keep their EULA as cheap as they possibly can do. Now, one of the common challenges that customers have in EULAs is once you've bought it, the communication throughout the business is, we own a EULA from Oracle. It's free. You've got as much as you want. Go out and deploy it. Now, what gets lost in that communication is the nuance that only the products that are listed in the EULA itself are actually free. So, for example, if we take Oracle Database and Diagnostics and Tuning Pack and maybe 1 or 2 other products in our EULA, we haven't taken advanced support, advanced compression, rack, partitioning, OLAP, and on and on. Now, the teams that are deploying these products on our environment, they are not aware of that nuance in the agreement. And so they've been told that deploy away, Oracle's free, we've got a EULA. And so they must deploy these products that are not contained within the ULA. And this creates a huge compliance problem on the back end. And we'll talk more about that issue when we get to the certify section. The next pitfall or challenge we see customers have is with legal entities. And this is something that Oracle are so strict on. How Oracle contracts with everyone, the legal entity is defined at the very beginning of the contract. So this is the party that is doing business with Oracle. If any party not subject to that contract is accessing the EULA products, Oracle will see that as unlicensed usage. And so it's very important that when you initially enter into a EULA, you do the relevant checks to ensure that any parent companies, sister companies, child companies, or any corporate structures that may be deemed separate legal entities are named or covered in the terminology within that contract to ensure that they're covered. Should Oracle find legal entities that are accessing these products that are not part of that contract structure, then as I mentioned, Oracle will deem that as unlicensed usage and will provide one of two options for you as the customer. You can either add that legal entity in as you would in the next clause for mergers, acquisitions, and divestments, which will be very expensive, or that entity can purchase those licenses itself as brand new purchases, again, which would be very expensive. The next part of this is, and we move on to the next section, which is mergers, acquisitions, and divestments. Now, one of the key challenges with this is most customers don't even understand that these clauses exist within these contracts. But once you sign a contract, a software contract, how many companies go back 2, 3, 4 years later and check a contract if they're about to make an acquisition or a merger or a divestment? Sure, it happens in some cases, but I'm always surprised about how many companies don't even understand that they have this clause in their Oracle contract. And the clause itself will state that the customer is obligated to notify Oracle in writing of any of these activities should they happen during the period of the contract. These clauses will also stipulate how Oracle will price those entities being either added to or taken out of. So if you are divesting part of your organization, if that part of that organization is using these Oracle products, they will need to separate out and take those licenses with them. This is stipulated in the clause. It puts the mechanics involved to actually calculate the number of licenses that they're taking over. And again, if you are merging or if you are acquiring another organization, how you count the number of the fee that would need to be paid to Oracle to add them to the agreement is stipulated within that clause. So mergers and acquisitions and divestments is something we see customers struggle with quite a lot, and it's always worth having a very careful check of those clauses in your agreement. And then the final section of this is on the total support stream. And so the total support stream is the technical support that's built into the ULA agreement. When you sign a ULA, all of your perpetual licenses for those products that you owned previously are terminated. They no longer exist. But the support carries over into the ULA. That is added to by the support from the unlimited deployment fee, and that creates what's called the total support stream. So this is your year-on-year annual support. Many customers don't understand that that is then a single entity. So for all the products that have been added in the ULA, all of their support is combined into one single entity of support, which cannot be broken up or reduced. So once you put those products into the total support stream, even if you were to stop using half of them or more, you cannot, it's essentially all in or all out. So unless you terminate the entire total support stream, you can't break up that support payment, and it's there in perpetuity. So we've talked a bit about what a ULA is and some of the challenges with it, but now we want to talk about the ULA trap itself. And before we get into sort of how customers perceive this trap, I want to talk about why it is a trap in the first place. And so many people who are watching this, and hopefully people who are watching this, will be aware of Oracle's punitive licensing rules when it comes to virtualization, and in particular VMware. So as we mentioned, one of the reasons most customers will have a ULA is because they've been audited and they've deployed Oracle products onto VMware, and they were unaware that when you do so, Oracle will make you license the entire VMware environment. Now, this is a common challenge, but when customers are using Oracle products in VMware, they're essentially licensing the entire VMware environment, but they're not using the entire VMware environment. And so this will oftentimes mean that they own thousands and thousands and thousands of licenses in theory for products, but they're using a very small number of them. And this means when you renew your ULA, when you've got a ULA and you renew it, you're actually buying software and support that you will never use because you've already bought it many times over in the past. And so this is why it's a bit of a trap, because while you're giving Oracle hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for the renewal of your ULA, you're actually getting very little in return back. And so a certification is obviously the preferred option. But there's also a trap because many customers can't certify or certainly perceive the fact that they can't certify. And that's where we want to talk about the ULA decision. So when a customer is trying to weigh up, can we certify out of our ULA, or do we need to renew it? And these are the forces that compete within an organization when trying to make this decision. And as you can see on the graph here, customers struggle with being unable to certify products. And this means they can't accurately count exactly what they're using and where that stuff is. And this can be because of a lack of maturity in the ITAM space. It can be a challenge with tooling, but often customers face a real struggle being able to do that. Then they have the challenge of the non-ULA products deployed. And this can be very simple. This is, we articulated this earlier in the customers that didn't put enough product into their trolley or enough product into the ULA. If you're using a product, for example, something like Oracle multi-tenant in your databases, it's rare to see multi-tenant included in the ULA agreements. But with it becoming the de facto way that Oracle instances work in database now, many customers are deploying multi-tenant across their entire database environments. Now, when it comes to questioning whether you can certify out of the ULA, if you don't have that product in your ULA, there's a discrepancy between what you own in terms of the number of database licenses you're using and the associated database products that you've got in your estate. And this discrepancy means it's very difficult to certify out of the ULA because in essence, you're going to admit to using a bunch of Oracle software that you own no licenses for. And this plays into the second part, the fear of audit. So again, one of that big value that we looked at in one of the earlier slides, the no audit clause, customers generally carry a fear of being audited by Oracle. It's a very stressful experience and in many cases can lead to punitive financial penalties. So that fear of audit plays a big part in the psychology of this decision. And then the final part on this is obviously sometimes it can be difficult to quantify if there are any savings at all. So while we know that we will be stepping away from our unlimited deployment fee in our ULA, our cost saving, what are the other costs that we might find ourselves having to pay should we certify out? So are we going to have to buy licenses for these additional products? Is it going to negatively affect our relationship with Oracle for other things that we may be purchasing from Oracle? So things like cloud or Fusion Cloud applications or OCI, anything like that. So the actual cost savings can sometimes be a little bit difficult to quantify. And you have to weigh that up against the one key feature of certifying out the ULA, which is the legitimate money saving that you're going to make from it. So obviously you wouldn't need to then pay the unlimited deployment fee for the next 3 years or 5 years, depending on what you're going to do. So when customers look at this, it can often seem like it's a very much advantageous for them to just renew for another 3 years or just renew for another 5 years. But hopefully we're going to explain that's not the case and you are much better off certifying out. So this is where we move on to certifications. This is the question of, so how do we get out of a ULA? So once we're in our ULA and we've used the products in there, we're happy with it. How do we get out of the ULA? Now, the ULA has a clause called the certification clause, and this is what happens at the end of the agreement, and it sets out what a customer must do and how it must notify Oracle of its intention to exit the agreement at the end. And there's essentially a 5-step process to how a customer can successfully certify out of their ULA. And we'll go through these steps one at a time. So the first step, and probably the most important step, is around giving yourself sufficient time. So many customers get to that in the contract. You have 30 days to notify Oracle before the end of the contract what your intention is to do. Many customers get to that time in 30 days, 60 days even, is not enough time to be able to make the required changes in the environment to be able to certify out. And you really need a proper runway to be able to do this. Now, we say here 3 to 6 months. Depending on the size and the complexity, it may be slightly longer than that, but certainly 6 months is a decent amount of time needed to be able to successfully certify out of the ULA. The second step is to engage with an experienced licensing partner like Livingstone. I often draw this analogy that trying to certify out of a ULA is like trying to play chess with the grandmaster. Oracle are incredibly skilled and experienced at being able to pull the psychological tricks on their customers to make it seem like a renewal is the only real option that a customer has, and that a certification is far too risky and far too difficult for them to undertake. And that perception can seem very real. But in reality, if you've given yourself enough time and you've engaged with a partner like Livingstone, we can ensure not only that you get a successful exit from the ULA, but that the risks of exiting that ULA are minimized to next to zero in the future years. So I can't overstate this enough, that engaging with a partner to get out of your ULA is incredibly important, because you're playing chess with a grandmaster, and if you've rarely played the game before, it's a difficult task at best. Step 3 is the review, the self audit. We call this an ELP, but you need to perform an ELP of those ULA programs within your environment. And this is where it can be a real challenge for a lot of customers, because actually accurately measuring the use of Oracle products on a diverse and mixed environment, where you've got some stuff in AWS, Azure, in cloud environments, you've got some on-prem, you may have some AIX, you may have some physical servers, some VMware. It can be very difficult to accurately measure the consumption of those products in those environments. And again, working with a partner to help you do this brings that expertise to bear. But having an accurate number of what you're using in terms of processors for each of those products is essential to being able to have a successful certification. Step 4 is risk and optimize. And so we mentioned a little bit about how risk can materialize within a business once they're under the cover of a ULA. And for the vast majority of customers we work with, this is absolutely the case. So we perform that review, and we'll find that they're using products that are not in their ULA on their environment, and in many cases unbeknownst to them. You need to have the appropriate time to be able to address that risk, mitigate that risk. That might include purchasing licenses. It might include technical mitigation. So, for example, it may involve isolating certain environments so that the required number of licenses doesn't exceed what you own. And then we talk about optimize. And so one of the goals of certification is for you to exit that agreement with the maximum number of licenses that you're entitled to. And so it's kind of like the flip side of an audit. So in an audit, we're trying to maintain the number of licenses in alignment with the number of, the number of products used in line with the number of licenses a customer owns. And in many cases, that means trying to reduce the number of applicable processes. But in a certification, we flip that over, and actually we're trying to maximize the number of licensable processes, because there is no negative punitive side to certifying out with more processes. So whether you certify out with 100 or 1,000,000, it doesn't affect the price you pay for support going forward. It's already written into your contract. And so this is where we can use Oracle's punitive licensing rules in our favor, particularly on things like VMware and partitioned environments. So maximizing the number of licenses that we can take out legitimately is absolutely a priority for us in a certification. And the final part, step 5, is negotiate. So when you certify out of a ULA, the first year of your technical support is set in the contract. It will tell you exactly what it is. After that first year, it is subject to the standard technical support increases that Oracle imposes, which is 8% year on year currently. Now, obviously, given the size of most customers' total support streams in that first year of technical support, that's a significant increase, particularly if it goes over multiple years. So you can imagine 8%, 8%, 8%, 8% over 3, 4, 5 years. That starts to look like big money. Now, what many customers don't understand is actually you can negotiate that with Oracle, and there is leeway in being able to cap some of that off. So you're not going to eliminate a support increase, but you can cap it. and you can keep it set for a period of time. So, for example, you may be able to split an 8% increase over, say, 5 years. So instead of doing 8%, 8%, 8%, you might do no percent, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%. What is actually achievable depends on a lot of factors, including your relationship with Oracle, the number of products in your ULA, the financial value of that support. But most customers can absolutely cap the amount of technical support increases that they're going to see after the certification year from the ULA and save themselves a lot of money. So what they need to do is have a strategy to be able to negotiate that with Oracle and to execute that strategy and get the best possible commercial resolution. So we've covered a lot of ground on that one. I'm going to pass this back over. Melissa, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. Thanks, Ben. So, two questions from Unal. First question is, many companies renew their Oracle ULA agreements as a safeguard against audits. What innovative methods or negotiation strategies can help break this cycle effectively? I don't know if you want to answer that, and then I get to part two.
Okay, so let me put that question back. So yeah, what can help break the cycle? So the very first thing is understanding, so what is the financial impact of a renewal? So what's it going to cost you? So in a ULA, there are two financial components of a ULA. There is what we call the unlimited deployment fee, and there is the technical support. Now, the unlimited deployment fee will also come with an additional support. So let's keep some numbers really simple. Let's say that your technical support, so your unlimited deployment fee is $1 million, and your technical support is $10 million. Let's just say that. So when they add that $1 million on, they're going to add 20% of that onto your technical support previously, and that's going to increase year on year. So that 20% is going to be on top of that over the year. So understanding what those numbers look like over the period of the agreement. So what am I going to pay in year one? What am I going to pay in year 2, year 3, year 4, depending on the length of your agreement, is critical. Because then what you can do is balance that off against, well, what can we save? What is the benefit to us doing this? And when you weigh that up, oftentimes you're going to save 100% of the unlimited deployment fee, plus then 20% of that support from the unlimited deployment fee, because it won't be added to your technical support. So that's the key, is first of all, outlining exactly what the financial benefit to the organization is of performing a certification. The second part is obviously weighing up again, and this is the real bit that I want to sort of articulate here, is for many companies, a vast majority of ULA customers, if you take a VMware environment, you're licensing all of that. So, and again, let's use some simple numbers. Let's say, for argument's sake, you've got 100 VMware hosts in your business. On that 100 hosts, if you're running even as many as 10 Oracle servers on those hosts, I'd be surprised if it's that many, which means you're licensing 90% of that environment for 10% of the actual capacity. So if that is the case, and that is the case in many ULA customers, that basically means those 90% of licenses you own for free. So why would you want to buy more licenses? Hopefully that makes sense. You've already got this surplus of licenses that you almost will never ever use. You will never get to the end of that surplus. So weigh up what the actual saving benefit is, and then articulate the fact that you already have a surplus of licenses for these products and you don't need to buy more.
Thanks, Ben. And then the second part of the question was, why is documenting organizational data usage and licensing scope critical during Oracle ULA exits? And what are the most sophisticated psychological and data-driven methods organizations can employ to gain strategic leverage in Oracle ULA exit negotiations?
Okay, yeah, long question. So first of all, of the data part. So we mentioned as part of these steps, the self-audit, the review, the self-audit, the ELP that customers need to create. So when you certify out of a ULA, Oracle are going to provide you with something called an OSW, an Oracle Server Worksheet. And they're going to ask you to self-declare what you are using for Oracle. Essentially a self-audit. They're going to ask you to perform a self-audit. Now, being able to do that requires certain skills and capabilities. which some customers have, some customers won't. Now, there are a bunch of tools that exist in the SAM marketplace, things like Flexera and Snow and others that have some capabilities they can bring to bear to support that. So these things are certified by Oracle to be able to measure Oracle database. But it is worth noting that none of those tools support the entire Oracle ecosystem. So if you're a customer that uses things like EPM, so Hyperion, Essbase, these type of things, those products are useless for those Oracle products. If you use applications like RightNow, Primavera, PeopleSoft, any of that stuff, those products are useless. They can't help you with those areas either. But they can support you on middleware, and depending on the product, depending on which tool you use, database, middleware, and e-business. So having a data strategy, first of all, it depends on what your capabilities are at the moment. So do you have an Oracle certified SAM tool in place, and how far along the road will that get you? If you don't, again, you're going to need to partner with an organization like Livingstone. Unlike any other software publisher, the data required to be able to measure Oracle is not found on basic inventory tools. So you can't use SCCM to measure Oracle database, for an example. While it can tell you the cores and the processes that the databases are on, it can't measure the use of packs and options. It can't count the number of users on the database. So you need specialist technology to be able to do that. So yeah, depending on what you have, to answer the first part of that question, simply depending on what technology you have in place, if you've got a certified Oracle SAM tool, then you can use that, but you need to then find a way to plug the gaps. If you don't have that, almost certainly you need to engage with an Oracle partner, such as Livingstone, to support you with that. On the psychological side, again, you need to, this is a case by case basis, so you need to understand the mechanics that are at play within the organization, because it's not always purely financial. So in some organizations, we've seen it before. We've worked with customers that have buy from sell to relationships with Oracle, just as an example, and there are deeper activities at play other than just purely commercial software contracts. So it's really a case by case basis. You need to understand what the pressure points within the organization are. Do we have relationships beyond the ULA with Oracle? And by that I mean, for example, you may have a perpetual license ULA in place for database, middleware, whatever, but then you may also have large Oracle Fusion Cloud contracts. You may also have OCI contracts in place. You may have things like Exadata. You may have hardware contracts in place. Understanding the full ecosphere of the Oracle investment really will help you understand the psychology at place there. So it's really about, it's a case by case basis. You need to fully understand the relationship between Oracle and the customer, and then you need to understand what else is pulling the levers there, what else is at play, and try and address them. And obviously, based on that information, in some cases, certification may just not be appropriate. But I think that for at least 95%, maybe more, of customers, a ULA certification is the best option.
Thanks, Ben. Those are the only questions that have come in for now. I don't know if you want to move to your last slide. And just while I've got the mic, just to say, Ben's about to tell you about another webinar that we've got coming up. If you look in the chat box, I'm going to post a link to it shortly in case it's useful to anyone and you want to grab the link so you can register.
Thanks, Melissa. So I'll move over. Yeah, so to wrap up, so for help with any questions you have on ULAs, any challenges you have with Oracle licensing, whatever it might be, whether it be Java, whether it be audit, whether it be perpetual standard licenses, contact me directly, ben.dove@livingstonetech.com. That's my job. This is what I do every day. I am an Oracle expert and I'm here to help you. So for any challenges, please reach out. We also have a bunch of materials at the livingstonetech.com website. So we've got blogs and we've got articles on various aspects of Oracle licensing. So please go and take a look there and see if any of that's useful for you. And as Melissa mentioned, we have our How to Defend an Oracle Audit webinar in February next year. That will again be with me. So please sign up for that if that's of interest. I'm sure we'll be sharing lots of useful information. And yeah, that should be great. So yeah, nothing more else for me to say. Thank you very much for joining. Thanks from me, and we'll see you on the next one.